There is a reason you feel like no matter how hard you work, you are always running on empty. And it has nothing to do with your work ethic. It is by design. Ancient history books describe temple priestesses as humble, devoted servants. That is a lie. From Egypt to India to China, these women were some of the wealthiest, most materially abundant people in the ancient world. They controlled vast estates and royal treasuries. What did they know that you don't? What practice made them magnetic to wealth in civilizations where most women had nothing? The answer was buried for centuries. And it has everything to do with what you are doing with your sexual energy right now. Let us begin in Egypt. In the desert, on the western bank of the Nile, stands the Temple of Hathor at Dendera. It is one of the best preserved temples in all of Egypt, and it was one of the wealthiest institutions in the ancient world. Not a church, not a charity. A center of power, influence, and immense material resources. The women who served here were not passive worshipers. They underwent years of rigorous training, not in prayer, but in something far more practical. They were trained in the cultivation and direction of energy. Modern acoustic studies of the Dendera temple reveal something remarkable. The inner chambers were designed to amplify specific sound frequencies that directly affect the human nervous system. The priestesses used these resonant stone rooms for rituals involving sustained vocal toning, chanting at precise pitches that created measurable vibrations in the body. Combined with sacred oils, specific incense blends, and controlled breathing techniques, these practices induced altered states of consciousness. This was not mysticism for its own sake. The results were practical. Pharaohs consulted these priestesses before wars, before treaties, before the construction of monuments that would take decades to complete. Historical records describe the priestesses as possessing an almost supernatural ability to perceive future events and read the hidden motivations of people around them. More importantly, the records describe something else: a physical quality, a radiance, a magnetism that people could feel the moment they entered a priestess's presence. Visitors to the temple reported feeling drawn to these women in a way they could not explain. Here is what the priestesses understood, and what modern women have been systematically taught to forget. Feminine sexual energy is not just biological. It is the most concentrated creative force in the female body. When this energy is spent unconsciously, through stress, through emotional caretaking, through relationships that drain rather than nourish, through work that demands constant output without reciprocity, a woman becomes depleted. Her field contracts. Her magnetism fades. She has to push, force, and struggle for everything she receives. But when this same energy is consciously retained, when it is not leaked or given away, something extraordinary happens. It accumulates. It builds pressure. And that pressure creates a field around the woman that functions like a gravitational force. Opportunities, resources, people, money begin moving toward her. Not because she is chasing them, because her field is pulling them in. The priestesses of Hathor did not pray for wealth. They generated a force field that made wealth inevitable, and they did it through the mastery of their own sexual energy. Now let us move 4,000 miles east to southern India. Beginning as early as the 6th century, a tradition existed in the temples of southern India that would endure for over 1,000 years. The Devadasis. The word translates as servants of God, but the reality was far more complex and far more powerful than that translation suggests. Before British colonial powers rewrote their history, Devadasis were among the most respected and influential women in Indian society. They were highly educated. They were trained from childhood in classical dance, music, poetry, Sanskrit literature, and the tantric arts. They were scholars, artists, and energy practitioners. And they were wealthy. Devadasis owned property and operated businesses at a time when married women had no legal right to own anything. They held a unique social position, free from the constraints of marriage, free from the obligation to produce heirs, and free to cultivate their energy for their own empowerment. This freedom was not accidental. It was the entire point. Tantric texts from this period describe in extraordinary detail the practices these women performed. The central practice was the cultivation of Shakti, the raw, primordial, creative force that Tantra identifies as the essence of feminine power. Shakti is sexual energy in its purest form, not reduced to the act of sex, but understood as the fundamental creative fire that births everything into existence. The Devadasis practiced specific techniques to draw this sexual energy from the lower body upward through the central channel of the spine. The energy was not suppressed. It was not denied. It was refined and redirected. Instead of being spent outward on a husband, on children, on the emotional demands of a household, it was circulated internally. This internal circulation produced what the Tantric masters called Ojas. Ojas is described as the most refined product of all bodily processes, the final essence that emerges when sexual energy is transmuted rather than expelled. And Ojas has a visible signature. It appears as a radiance, a glow that emanates from the skin, from the eyes, from the entire presence of the woman who carries it. This is not poetry. This is a technical description from practitioners who spent lifetimes studying the mechanics of feminine energy. The Devadasis who mastered this process became legendary for their magnetism. Kings sought their company. Wealthy patrons donated enormous sums to the temples where they served. Their influence on politics, art, and culture was immense, not because they manipulated anyone, but because their field was so powerful that people, resources, and opportunities gravitated toward them naturally. In 1927, the British colonial government criminalized the Devadasi tradition. The official reason given was morality. The actual effect was the destruction of one of the last living lineages of feminine sexual energy mastery on the planet. A 1,000-year tradition was erased in a single legislative act. Now let us travel further east to China. In the Taoist tradition, there exists a category of practitioners known as Nu Xian, the female immortals. These were women who, according to Taoist records, mastered the art of internal alchemy to such a degree that they reversed visible signs of aging, maintained extraordinary physical vitality into old age, and demonstrated abilities that their contemporaries considered supernatural. The most documented among them is Sun Bu'er, born in the year 1119. Sun Bu'er was a wife and mother who, at the age of 51, undertook the practice of internal alchemy and reportedly transformed her appearance and vitality so dramatically that those who knew her could not believe she was the same woman. The core of Taoist women's practice centers on a concept called Jing preservation. Jing is the primordial essence, the deepest reserve of life force stored in the kidneys and the reproductive organs. In women, Jing is intimately connected to the ovaries and the menstrual cycle. Here is what the Taoist masters understood and what modern medicine still does not acknowledge. Every month, a woman's body generates an enormous surge of sexual energy during her menstrual cycle. This is not just a biological event. It is an energetic event of immense power. In most women, this energy is dissipated unconsciously. It leaks through stress, emotional reactivity, excessive mental activity, poor sleep, and the constant act of giving energy to others without replenishment. The Taoist women practitioners learned to capture this monthly surge. Through specific meditation techniques, including a practice called ovarian breathing, they drew the sexual energy inward and upward, circulating it through defined pathways in the body. Each month, instead of losing this energy, they accumulated it, layer upon layer, month after month, year after year. The result, according to the texts, was not merely spiritual attainment, it was physical transformation, extraordinary vitality, mental clarity that bordered on clairvoyance, and a magnetic quality that drew material resources and influential people toward them without effort. These practices were transmitted in strict secrecy from master to student, never committed to public texts. When Confucian orthodoxy consolidated power in China, women's independent spiritual practices were classified as dangerous and suppressed. The lineage nearly disappeared. Now step back and look at what we have. 3 civilizations: Egypt, India, China, separated by thousands of miles and centuries of time. No documented contact between them, no shared religious framework, no common language. And yet, all 3 independently discovered the exact same principle. Feminine sexual energy, when consciously preserved instead of unconsciously spent, transforms into a magnetic force that attracts material abundance, social influence, and physical vitality. All 3 traditions describe the same physical sensations in the women who practiced this. Warmth building in the lower belly, energy rising through the spine, a feeling of internal fullness, of pressure, of power, accumulating with nowhere to go but outward through the field. All 3 traditions documented the same external effects: increased influence over the people around them, material wealth flowing toward the woman without her having to chase it, a visible radiance that others could feel but could not explain. This is not mythology. This is convergent discovery. When 3 unconnected groups of human beings arrive at the same conclusion through independent experimentation, the scientific term for that is confirmation. They were not inventing a belief system. They were observing a biological and energetic reality. So what happened? If this knowledge was so powerful, so effective, so well documented, why does virtually no modern woman know about it? The answer is simple and brutal. In Egypt, the temples were closed in the 4th century when Christianity became the official state religion. The priestesses were dispersed. Their practices were labeled as pagan sorcery. In India, the British colonial government criminalized the Devadasis tradition and systematically rewrote their legacy. Women who had been scholars, artists, and energy masters were reclassified in colonial records as prostitutes. 1,000 years of feminine wisdom reduced to a single degrading word. In China, Confucian and later communist movements suppressed women's spiritual autonomy as a threat to social order. The secret transmissions between Taoist women masters were severed. In Europe, the Inquisition burned an estimated 40,000 to 60,000 people at the stake, the overwhelming majority women. Herbalists, healers, midwives, women who maintained independent knowledge of the body, of energy, of the natural world. All classified as witches, all eliminated. The pattern across every continent is identical. Women who understood and controlled their own sexual energy were reclassified as dangerous, and they were destroyed. What replaced them? A model of femininity built entirely on depletion. Give to your husband. Give to your children. Give to your employer. Give to your community. Give until there is nothing left, and then feel guilty for being tired. This is the model the modern woman inherited. And she was told it was natural. She was told that exhaustion, financial struggle, and the constant feeling that something is missing are simply part of being a woman. They are not. They are the symptoms of a system running in reverse, of sexual energy being drained instead of cultivated, of the most powerful creative force in the female body being spent unconsciously every single day on everyone and everything except the woman herself. Here is the truth that changes everything. The biology has not changed in 5,000 years. Your body is the same body that the priestesses of Hathor trained for decades to master. The same body the Devadasis used to generate Ojas and magnetic presence. The same body the Taoist Immortal women refined through ovarian breathing and internal alchemy. The sacral center, located in your lower belly, is still the most powerful sexual and creative engine in the female body. It is still generating enormous amounts of energy every single month. The mechanism has not disappeared. It has not evolved away. It is running right now, inside you, as you listen to these words. The only difference between you and the ancient priestesses is awareness. They knew this energy existed. They knew it had to be consciously directed or it would be unconsciously drained. And they built specific practices to capture, refine, and deploy it. You were never taught this. You were taught the opposite. You were taught to give, to serve, to deplete yourself in the name of love, duty, and strength. And the result is exactly what the ancient traditions would have predicted: exhaustion, financial struggle, creative blocks, and a persistent feeling that your power is locked somewhere you cannot reach. It is not locked. It is leaking. When a woman begins to consciously retain and direct her sexual energy, even with the most basic awareness, the effects that the ancient texts describe begin appearing in her modern life. Increased magnetism that others notice but cannot name. Unexpected financial opportunities that seem to arrive from nowhere. Creative ideas that feel alive, urgent, demanding expression. A physical vitality that makes people ask, what changed? Nothing changed externally. She simply stopped pouring her energy into a world that was not giving it back. And the moment she did, the field around her shifted from depletion to attraction. This is not about celibacy. This is not about suppression. This is not about withdrawing from life, from relationships, or from pleasure. The priestesses were not isolated hermits meditating in caves. They were the most socially powerful, materially abundant, creatively expressed women of their civilizations. They lived fully. They engaged with the world fearlessly. But they did so from overflow, not from depletion. From a cup that was full, not from a cup they kept emptying for everyone else. This is the difference. This is the secret that built temple empires and made ancient priestesses the wealthiest women of their time. It was conscious mastery of the energy your body is already generating. But knowledge without practice is just entertainment. So let me give you 3 things you can begin today. Not theory, not philosophy. 3 actions drawn directly from what the priestesses practiced, simplified for a modern woman's life. The first practice comes from Egypt. Awareness before correction. The priestesses of Hathor spent their first years of training doing nothing but observing. Before they learned a single technique, they learned to see. Your version is this. For 1 week, simply notice every moment you give your energy away and feel a contraction in your body. The conversation where you said yes, but your stomach tightened. The text you replied to out of guilt, not desire. The hour you spent processing someone else's emotions while your own creative work sat untouched. Do not fix anything yet. Do not change anything. Just watch. Write it down at the end of each day. By the 7th day, you will have a complete map of where your sexual energy is leaking. And that map is worth more than 100 techniques because you cannot redirect what you cannot see. The second practice comes from China. Morning containment. The Taoist women masters began every day the same way. Before speaking to anyone, before engaging with the world, they breathed energy into their lower belly and sealed it there. Your version takes 5 minutes. When you wake up, before you touch your phone, before you speak a single word, Place both hands on your lower belly. Breathe slowly and deeply into that space. Feel warmth building under your hands. With each exhale, imagine that warmth becoming denser, heavier, more concentrated. 5 minutes. That is all. What you are doing is a simplified form of what the Taoists called ovarian breathing. You are drawing your attention and your life force into your sacral center before the world has a chance to scatter it. Do this for 30 days and notice what shifts in your energy, your magnetism, and what begins appearing in your life. Practice 3 comes from India, the sacred refusal. The Devadasis held a power that no other women in their society possessed, the power of no. They were not bound to serve a husband, a household, or anyone else's emotional needs. They chose where their energy went. Your practice is this. Once per day, refuse one thing that drains your energy. Not with anger, not with explanation. Simply refuse. The favor you would normally agree to while your body screams, stop. The emotional conversation you would normally absorb while your own creative fire dies. The task you would normally accept because saying no feels selfish. Say no. Say nothing after it. Feel the energy that would have left your body stay inside you instead. This is what the Devadasis understood. Every no that protects your energy is a yes to your power, and that power compounds. Day after day, week after week, until the field around you is so full that life has no choice but to rearrange itself in your favor. 3 practices, 3 civilizations, 1 principle. Stop the leak, and the vessel fills itself. History proved that it works. 3 civilizations independently confirmed it. Thousands of women across thousands of years demonstrated it with their lives. The question is not whether this is real. History already answered that. The question is, how long will you keep giving away what was always meant to be yours? If this knowledge reached you at exactly the right moment, write the word priestess in the comments. Let it be your intention to reclaim what they buried. Subscribe to this channel. We are only beginning to uncover what was taken from you and what you are about to take back.